So after wrapping up the Shamatha mini-series and then following up with working with difficult emotions in meditation, we thought it would be very timely to do a series on the six Paramitas, or the six perfections. The Paramitas are one of the first topics or lists that we encounter when embarking on Buddhist studies. So while it is foundational, just like shamatha and all the other preliminary topics, these are all points I feel that we can never hear enough of. And especially because Phuntsok is really great at bringing his unique perspective to really drive these concepts home for us. And I thought it was also a really wonderful way to close the year by reflecting on how we've done in developing these qualities during the year, seeing where we can improve and what are some of the things that we can really celebrate and dedicate. So each week we'll focus on one paramita, and if we keep this schedule, we'll actually end the year on the fifth paramita, and in the new year 22, we'll finally receive the final paramita, wisdom. And just as a suggestion, I remember when I first started learning about the six perfections some years ago, I started to keep a little notebook, and as sort of a nightly journaling, I would go through each perfection and reflect on how I did that day, how I showed up, and what were the challenges, how did my ego intrude. And it really gave me so much deeper insight, and it allowed me to sort of track my growth and really deepen what these aspects mean to me personally. So if that sounds interesting to you, I invite you to do that as we go through this series with Phuntsok's teachings. Especially with the holidays coming up, there will be a lot more interacting with our close ones. So it'll be a time ripe with opportunity to examine. So just to give a very brief intro to Phuntsok's talk, Paramitas, as probably a lot of you already know, is Sanskrit, translating to perfection or transcendent. And some translators will instead call them the six far-reaching qualities, because as we develop these qualities, it's said that we'll reach the far shore of our problems. And these are also imperative qualities of a bodhisattva who work tirelessly for the benefit of all sentient beings, ushering them also across the shore. So today, Phuntsok will speak on the first paramita, generosity, or dana in Sanskrit. And we all know what generosity entails, but we all come from different backgrounds and cultures and personal stories that can muddy it up. Personally, having been raised by immigrant Asian parents, it's been ingrained to really be subservient to the other, often to the extreme of having little to no regard for one's own comfort or well-being. So the concept of generosity for me personally, straddling two very different cultures, has been a complex journey. And generosity is also often connected to monetary value and economics. So it's interesting to think about how we can embody the spirit of generosity and live with a wealthy spirit while also struggling with a scarcity mindset. And then in the spiritual context, when you add in the topic of karma, and in the process of understanding these huge concepts, that can also make things sticky. And there are definitely a lot of diluted teachings out there that turn this into kind of a spiritual transactionalism. So we see how important it is to protect the virtue of generosity. And one of the routine Buddhist practices is to offer the mandala, giving real and imagined offerings to the Buddhas. And when you put your whole heart into it, it is a deeply profound and humbling visualization and practice that can really bring you to tears. And there are always three types of offerings: outer, inner, and secret, from our three doors: body, speech, and mind. So we're here to ask Phuntsok how we can honestly and realistically engage with the quality of generosity with integrity and virtue, and in a way that is not depleting, but perpetually self-nourishing our inner wellspring, so that we never run out of this energy and we are always radiating the spirit of abundance with more to give. Phuntsok, when you're ready, please.
Thank you again for a beautiful introduction. So the Paramitas, that's what we're going to be covering for the next 6 classes or so. And we will cover each one of them according to how they are presented. They're presented in a specific order, beginning with generosity and ending with wisdom. And there's a reason why it begins with generosity and it ends with wisdom. And it's not arbitrary. It's because it's what's happening internally to the person who is practicing these things. Each one of these become an emphasis because of the degree of understanding that you have. And that's what determines which one is emphasized. But it doesn't mean that you practice one and you don't practice the other ones, but rather you emphasize one while you're practicing the others, and you try to infuse each one with an understanding of the others. Okay. So you never really just practice just one. You practice one, and then the others are somehow influencing how you're practicing it. We begin with, of course, meditation, and then a little talk on the topic. And I'm going to try not to make it too abstract, too scholastic, because this can become scholastic. Okay, we want to have an understanding of it in such a way that we feel, okay, let me go out and practice. And how do I know that I'm practicing this, the perfection of giving, of generosity? What makes my generosity the perfection of generosity, and so forth? Okay, I have to remember now, it's no longer 3 hours. Okay, so let's begin with a meditation. And if you hear the background sound, sorry, I don't have my little microphone that just picks up what comes from my mouth, so a little bit of my surroundings will be picked up. Okay. And especially during the silent part, I will put myself on mute so that if there are extra sounds, it will not disturb you. Okay. But you shouldn't be disturbed. Okay, so create the intention that you're going to meditate. And as soon as you make that intention, notice how your body is responding to that intention, wanting to cooperate, how the different parts of your consciousness, your mind, your emotions, how they want to participate, how they want to cooperate. And simply let them. Let the body guide you. The body knows exactly what posture you should take in order for your meditation to be accessed. So listen to it as it gives you advice about making adjustments, and mindfully make the adjustments. And once you feel a certain degree of confidence in the comfort and stability of the posture, then gently bring awareness, bring attention to the breath. Without any intention to modify the breath, not any need to force the mind to focus on the breath, no need to control the breath. Just be aware of the breath as much as you can. You will be aware of other things also. And try to make the breath the center. As you breathe in, you simply know you are breathing in. As you breathe out, you simply know you are breathing out. And notice the calm slowly arising within the body. Welcome it. Rejoice in its presence. And accompanying the calm in the body, notice pockets of pleasant experiences slowly arising. Welcome them. Rejoice in their presence. And because simply of turning attention to this calmness slowly arising, the pleasantness slowly arising within the body that is palpably felt, undeniably present, not imagining to be present. It affects the breath, and that affects the mind, bringing them into the sphere of calm, slowly bringing them into the sphere of pleasantness. And as you notice that, welcome them in the mind, welcome them in the breath. Until you feel yourself at the threshold of about to enter into a new dimension, a new space, a new being, a new way of being aware. It will be slight at first, and it will be definitely different as you go deeper. So when you're feeling yourself at that threshold, make your last determination to fully enter. And with that determination to fully enter, you can take a nice deep breath, or you can just, with your intention, enter into that space. And with that full commitment to fully enter, witnessing yourself in that space, rejoice, witnessing the early signs, enhancing in the body, enhancing in the breath, enhancing in the mind. And once you feel a certain degree of confidence that you are indeed in a different space, a different dimension of awareness, of some degree different, that is within the realm, within the space of meditation itself, qualified by the signs of calm, enhancing, pleasantness, enhancing, and a sense of automatic presence, spontaneity, with thoughts arising, feelings arising, sensations arising, connected to any one of our sense perceptions, seeming to be arising by themselves. Acknowledge that as this is a direct experience of the natural clarity and the natural luminosity of the mind. Welcome them, rejoice in their presence. And feeling this in a palpable way, the calm, the pleasantness, the sense of clarity, the sense of radiance, due to the very appearances of sensations. We stabilize with 3 breaths. And with each out breath, allow yourself to dive deeper into these very signs, deeper into the calm, deeper into the pleasantness, staying in the depth. And there's a sensation that sort of summarizes the state of being in meditation. Be sensitive to it and stay aware of it. That's how you stay connected to it. That's how you dive deeper into it. Remember, our perceptions, our senses are still picking up from the environment, from within. No need to push that away, and no need to grasp on tightly to the sense of the meditation. Just with ease and confidence, stay aware of it. And while palpably in that space, gently raise your attention to the space in front of you at the level of your eyebrows, until you begin to be aware of a sensation in the forehead somewhere, in some way. And as soon as you're aware of it, no matter what it is, no matter how ordinary it appears, no matter how unordinary it appears, just stay with it with the same level of openness and calm that you have with the breath, not grasping, not rejecting. And feel the presence of your potential. And if you're lucky, your potential has appeared in your life in some substantial way. Substantial meaning there is a definite sense of being guided, either in the appearance of a person that you've met, a person that you've read about, but you feel a connection and you feel a definite sense of being guided. That's your potential, having appeared to you because of your sincere aspirations. And as you feel that presence, feel its luminous radiance, feel its all-embracing love, how that love is protective, guiding, accepting. And have deep respect for that presence, deep trust for that presence, and gratitude towards that presence. And in that presence, there is your potential to practice the perfections in the ideal way that you sense is possible, with wisdom, with power, effective. So connect with that. And connect with your aspiration and your desire to practice this way, so that you feel without a doubt, without any hesitation, fully human. And open your heart to fully receive whatever understanding that you are capable of understanding, at least for now. And let the light of the presence of your potential enter your heart. And just stay in that sense of being open to understanding, ready to implement your understanding. Okay, get ready to come out of the meditation. First, bear witness to the signs that you're indeed in a meditative state, in the body, in the breath, in the mind. Rejoice that they are there. And with the intention to come out, take a nice deep breath, if you wish, or just with your intention, come out slowly. And let your awareness slowly embrace your immediate surroundings, being aware of the contact through your sense of touch, sense of hearing, sense of sight. Okay. So there, you could say, on a practical level, there are two practices of the perfections, the paramitas. There are two levels of practice. One you might call aspirational, and the other is it's like it's your career, so to speak. It's almost like you're studying medicine, and there's a time where you're not really practicing, but there you are in hospitals and seeing patients, but you're not called practicing medicine yet. It's like you are an intern, okay? And how long are you going to be an intern? It all depends on you. And how long will it take? The aim of practicing the perfections, one reason that they're called perfections is not that they're already perfect, but rather they lead to perfection. They lead to a perfect state. And what is that perfect state? It is a state where there's no longer any hesitation. There's no longer any ambiguity about how to relate in the most skillful way with others, with yourself, with your environment. There's no longer ambiguities. There's no longer doubts. You are fully embodying compassion. Everything you do is governed by an instinct of compassion. instinct of compassion. And this compassion is perfectly wedded, perfectly mixed with wisdom, with an understanding of reality, with understanding of how things are. Okay, so that you could say that's when these are no longer practices to achieve a certain aim, but rather they become themselves the means, they become themselves the goal. A bodhisattva is someone who is practicing, who is training to become fully evolved. And the way for this being, for this person to achieve complete, to become fully evolved, that being practices the perfections, the 6 perfections. And just like those 2 kinds of people that I mentioned, those who are practicing in a practical way, those who are practicing the perfections with the aspiration so that they become an actual, full-time job, become your career. Okay, your existence is basically engaging in some way or another in the 6 perfections. That's all you're doing as a bodhisattva. Whatever it is that you're doing an act of giving. You're relating with others in a most skillful way that you can relate with them. You are patient. You're able to bear difficulties. And all the rest of them. Okay. And it is then that you could say you're really practicing the perfections. You're really practicing the perfections. But before then, what we have to, and the reason that I have to mention this is because until we are actual bodhisattvas, and what does it mean to be an actual bodhisattva? It's an actual realization, it's an actual turning that happens in the mind, where you're no longer confused about what compassion is supposed to be, where you're no longer confused about wisdom, where you're no longer confused about whether or not is it possible to be, what is the possibility of being a fully evolved human being. You're no longer confused about that. You no longer have doubts about that. You have, you could say, perfect conviction of the possibility of that. That in your own stream of being, there is a potential that you can realize, and there's no doubt about it anymore. And you are in your everyday, every 24/7, you're working towards that aim. You're working towards getting to that. For the aspirational, what do I mean by that? I mean us regular people. Okay, us regular folks who are not actual real bodhisattvas, but we love the bodhisattva ideal. We aspire to become bodhisattvas, but it's not. No actual transformation has taken place within our minds, where it is without a doubt that our life is dedicated to compassion. Every once in a while, our own selfish tendencies come in, and they determine our action. They determine what we do, what we say, what we think. Okay, and this is not to discourage people, because I thought I was a bodhisattva because I like that idea. I thought just liking the idea makes you a bodhisattva. No, it's like I like being a doctor. Does that make you a doctor because you like being a doctor? No, you have to train to become a doctor. And what keeps you in that training is that aspiration, is that conviction in being able to be a doctor. Okay. So there's somehow you're lucky enough, you're fortunate enough to understand that there is such a way of being where compassion and love are the driving force of how you relate with the world, how you relate with your environment. And eventually you mature into such a being where it's no longer once in a while you touch compassion, once in a while you touch love that is all embracing. then you're able to no longer have to fight those sort of tendencies, those confusions about what is compassion, what is love, what is wisdom. And that sounds all theoretical. In a practical way, what does it mean? When are you a bodhisattva? You're a bodhisattva when you understand through your own experience what is suffering. Suffering is no longer a theory for you. It's not an abstract. And the only way for us to understand suffering is to see our own suffering and not run away from it. And that seeing creates a desire, an aspiration to put an end to it. I'm not talking about not learning. Of course, you want to learn, and the only way to learn from these experiences is to face them. I'm not talking about a superficial way of facing problems. And we know that very well, especially those of us who have been practicing for some time, who've been in a spiritual path for some time. We know we're supposed to be facing our problems directly, and we don't really have the capacity to face our problems directly. And we know, and we hear that we're supposed to face them directly, so we pretend to face them directly. We create an image. We create a sense of the problem, and then we are looking at the sense of the problem, and we think that we're looking at the problem. And in this, when we just look at the sense of the problem, without admitting to ourselves that we cannot face the problem, we cannot face the difficulty, what we end up doing, we end up not able to really come to the wisdom that this problem, this difficulty could have offered us. We have fake wisdom, and because we have fake wisdom, there's no real evolution. There's no real growth taking place. Okay. So when you are facing difficulties, it's an opportunity for us to learn, yes, but we have to face it. And because we are facing difficulties head on, we're not running away from them, we gain real wisdom. We gain true determination to put an end to them. And the way we put an end to them is not pretending, it's not through imagining things, imagining ourselves to be free of them, but allowing the very pain to guide us to how to put an end to the pain, how to put an end to the suffering. And through this, we gain wisdom. And now that we are intimately aware of what pain is, what suffering is, what it is to be a being who suffers, then our compassion for those who are in similar situation becomes real. It's not something that we are faking. It's not something that we are pretending to have. It comes from real, intimate understanding. Not that we are directly understanding how someone is experiencing their pain, their suffering, but through inference, through our own intimate connection, through our own intimate experience of our own pain, we can infer from these signs that I have witnessed these same signs within me, and I know how it feels to suffer. And in the same way that I aspire to free myself from these conditions of suffering, because believe it or not, suffering is, yes, we're supposed to learn from suffering. It doesn't mean that we're supposed to live with them. You could say what suffering wants from us is for us to be free of them. Suffering, in a way, is telling us you have strayed far away from the true nature of your being. And the deeper, the stronger the suffering is, that's how far we have strayed away from that. Okay. So once we've learned the lesson of the suffering through true aspiration to end it, then when we aspire for someone else, when we see their pain, when we aspire for them to be free of their pain, then it is real. It's real compassion, because we have had compassion for ourselves And now we can extend this compassion for others. Okay. And out of this compassion, this aspiration, this determination, I want to help others become free of their pain. And I'm willing to transform my entire being into such a state where I'm capable of doing that for others. And being able to do that for others is the state that we are aspiring to. That's when the perfections become, you could say, perfected. We are able to now use our own being, use our own understanding, use our capacities, we use our knowledge to help others free themselves from their difficulties in a way that is practical, in a way that is effective, in a way that is actual, you could say. So this aspiration, once this aspiration is born within us, and it is constant, it is 24 hours in our mind, 24 hours in our hearts become completely open to that compassion, completely open to that love. It becomes, then in a practical way, we at the same time achieve a certain degree of focus that we didn't have before. A focus that gives rise to, that actually transforms our biology. A focus that transforms our psychology, where we are now able to tap into the energy that we need to help us grow in the sense of growing to be able to actually help, And for those of you who are a bit scholastic, once this compassion is achieved within a state of deep meditative absorption, where you have, where your mind is completely absorbed in compassion, your mind has become a compassion itself. Your mind has become that determination to transform your being into a being capable of helping others. When your mind is completely absorbed into that, having achieved shamatha with that, that's when you become a bodhisattva. Okay, that is, you're able to enter into the sphere of love and completely be absorbed into it, without it being some imagination, without it being some nice feeling that you're imagining, but an actual experience which is for you as real as any experience that you feel is real. So that is the point where one has become a real bodhisattva. And this real bodhisattva, that's someone you could say is now graduated, who's now a doctor, who's now practicing. And this person is the one who's actually practicing the paramitas, the perfections. Until we are that kind of being, how do you know if you're bodhisattva or not? Do you have shine? Do you have shamatha? How do you know you have shamatha? Are you able to keep your mind focused one-pointedly without it straying away for at least 4 hours? And then at that time, you're feeling bliss in your body and your mind, and the bliss is not overwhelming you. That's when you know you have shine. That's when you know you have shamatha. Imagine you're thinking about you're thinking about love, you're thinking about compassion or someone in your mind, and then how that feeling sort of overwhelms you, you feel it physically in your body as well as psychologically. And being able to stay there, not being thrown in it, but being able to stay there consciously, deliberately. Okay, so being able to stay in that compassion deliberately, that's when you're a bodhisattva. So until then, yes, that is possible to achieve. And then with practice, it's achievable. But until then, we get tastes of it. We're able to taste it for a second, for 2, or for a minute even, okay? And before then, we're aspiring to be able to practice the perfections. And in our aspirations to practice the perfections, there will be time we will not do it perfectly. There will be time we will be lousy at it. There will be time when we will fail. There will be time we think we are practicing generosity, but we are actually just inflating our ego. There are times when we think we are being ethical, but we are actually being selfish or fearful. Okay, and this is where most of us are. I don't know about all of you, but most of us, that's where we are. That is the reality. That's how we are. That is where we're supposed to now. How do we practically practice the perfections? Okay, and beginning with the first perfection. And why is it the first perfection? When your heart is open, when your mind is open to reality, when it's open to others, there's the barrier that separates us and other, you could say, is damaged, if not, I'm talking about in a heartfelt way, not in some philosophical way, in some existential way, okay? But in a heartfelt way, where basically meaning you feel for others the way you feel for yourself. Okay, that's the barrier. That's what I'm talking about in the practical way. You feel for others the way you feel for yourself. And sometimes it is confusing. What's the confusion? That our own ego confuses us. We think we are really caring for the other, but we're actually caring for ourselves. We don't know to what degree to what degree can I harm myself to help someone else? Okay. And that's where the confusion comes in. And that's perfectly normal. That's if this is happening, that means you are in that aspirational path of really trying to practice the perfections. Okay. And I don't want to go too much into theories about, the classifications and things like that, because that becomes just for your head. Just becomes something just for you to write in a book and then put it somewhere on a shelf and never have to remember. But rather to begin to practice aspirationally, so that this aspirational way of practicing actually lead to actual practicing. Okay. And what's going to happen? And there will be similar experiences between the one who's practicing in an aspirational way and the one who's practicing it in an actual way. And I will explain, okay? The practice of generosity is not when you actually give something. Practicing generosity begins with simply the intention to give. And that intention to give is pure. So that means in the beginning, we simply want to take care of that intention. Is my intention to give pure? Is it pure? And sometimes when we realistically look at it, we think there is the intention to, you could say the intention, the purity of the intention doesn't last too long. It comes for a few seconds, and then we overwhelm it with concepts, maybe probably our sincere intent to understand it. But we end up, our misunderstanding comes in, and then this pure intention has been taken over by some dysfunction. Our selfish needs, our fear, our not having the capacity to understand. I would say definitely from experience. In trying to dissolve the barrier of self and other, we damage what you might call healthy boundaries. Okay. We damage healthy boundaries. Should we have boundaries? Yes, we should have boundaries. And it's not boundary in a sense of protecting my selfish tendencies, but rather we need a healthy self on the path. And of course, we will make mistakes. We will confuse not having boundaries with selflessness. We will mistake wanting to please others with some kind of compassion. And the thing is when they are happening, is to be honest with ourselves and to understand, oh, that's what's happening here. Because if we don't understand that's what's happening here, then what we are cultivating is mainly that fear. We are cultivating and strengthening that fear. We are cultivating and strengthening that in not being able to set boundaries. That's what we are cultivating. Okay, but it doesn't mean that because that's what's present, there's something wrong with us. This is where we are. This is it also is called training. Okay, we are perfecting. We're not perfected. Okay. So when we're practicing generosity, that pure tendency that comes up, the intention to give. And what does it give? It gives of itself. It gives either possessions, it gives understanding, it gives its energy, its time. But each of these things that is being presented to you, being able to give, the thing is, you must give at your capacity to give. That is very important. Give at your capacity to give. That is, give in such a way that you don't harm the very capacity to give. Give in such a way that in your giving, you're not harming the recipient or the person who's receiving. And remember, there's always these bunch of threes. You give with body, you give with speech, you give with mind, and you understand what that means. To give with body is to give things, or to give your labor, okay, to give your time. To give with speech is to give, to communicate in such a way that your communication is an act of generosity. And to think a certain way, where you're thinking in such a way, it is a generosity to yourself, a generosity in holding others in such a way, in a healthy way. And there's the three of outer, inner, secret. And outer, inner, secret, there's a big way that you can understand it, which we could be very, very abstract, very theoretical. But is outer, inner, and secret. Okay. There's the outer there's an appearance. There's an appearance to it. That's the outer. The thing you're given, it has a certain look to it. The way you're giving it has a certain appearance to it. Okay? What you're giving, the way you're giving it, has a certain appearance to it. And the inner is the attitude that you have. The thing that you're giving, your time, your energy, the material thing, whatever it is, what is your attitude towards it? Are you truly capable of giving it? Is this something that you have true attachment to? That after giving it, you're going to be regretting it later on? Is your attitude going to be the attitude of regret? So that's the inner. Okay? What is your attitude? What do you think about the thing you're giving? What do you think about the person that you're giving the thing to? What do you think? How are you behaving in the act of giving itself? Do you respect the person? Do you respect? Are you giving garbage? What you know to be garbage? Or are you giving something that you sincerely believe the person will appreciate? Even though you may not appreciate it yourself, but you sincerely believe the person will appreciate it. Okay, that's the inner. And the secret is connected to your understanding of the entire process. It's the understanding that at the very minimum level is that you're not really in an ultimate way giving anything away. You're not really dealing with an actually separate person. You're really dealing with yourself. And I'm not talking in some woo-woo-woo-woo way that you're dealing with yourself. Remember, the barrier of selflessness slowly, when we are slowly understanding that this barrier of selflessness is dissolving, So there is some understanding of this selflessness. And it could be completely theoretical in your mind. And in the very beginning, when we are doing this in an aspirational way, it is mostly a theoretical understanding. And we have a slight hint, a slight taste, slight understanding of what it may be. Okay, then that is the secret. And the secret also has many levels, but that's the first level, the level of understanding that. And the reason, and what's the reason for this, for the secret? The reason for the secret is for us not to be attached, to, look at me, I am doing an act of giving. Look at this person. This person is very fortunate to be the recipient of my generosity. But to have some deep understanding that, yes, I see someone who's in need of this. Yes, I have the capacity to do this act of giving, but in a realistic way, I'm not really helping someone, because in an ultimate way, there is no separate self. There are no separate selves. Okay, that's the least way of understanding the secret way of giving. Okay, there are other ways of understanding the outer, the inner, and the secret, right? In terms of what is it that you're giving. One way of secret, like for example, you could say you don't give with the intention of being recognized, of receiving acknowledgement. You simply give because there's a need, and I am capable, and I am allowing, I'm going to say in a very, in a very kind of new agey kind of way, I'm allowing the universe to work through me. Okay. And what is happening also at the secret level is that we are basically opening ourselves to abundance. We see a need, and we are allowing ourselves to be a channel, to be an instrument to be able to satisfy that need. So we are basically, in a way, telling the universe, telling existence, let me be a channel through which others can receive. And that is a way of, and this is the secret of, one of the secrets of abundance. Okay. Now, for this to happen, where the universe, sorry for using that term, some of you probably can't stand it that I'm saying it. For the universe to actually take us as a steward, yeah, of its bounty, we have to be sincere. Yes, as a little child who cannot even do generosity properly, even as an aspiration way, that you could say you aspire to even practice generosity in an aspirational way. Even that is an aspiration. So in order for that person to even begin, that person has to be tricked. This is good for you. You're going to get a lot. You're going to be filled with abundance. But that is only a way to get the person to get to the door so that they can begin, actually have some semblance of beginning the practice of generosity. For generosity to actually become a means to open the door of abundance, you have to do it sincerely. You have to sincerely want to give. And because you understand the barrier of, because you understand that the barrier that separates us, that separates self and other, is a delusion, then that creates a level of detachment. We naturally have a sense of being unattached. And this sense of being unattached frees our minds and our mind being free, that the very action, the very act of giving sincerely creates joy within us. And this is where there is a similarity between us just aspiring to practice the perfections the way our actual bodhisattva practices. When a bodhisattva becomes a superior bodhisattva, the first paramita that this bodhisattva emphasizes in the practice is the practice of generosity. And for two reasons. Because they are so free of this barrier of self and other, they become unattached to their possessions. And whenever an opportunity arises where they can practice generosity, the very opportunity creates joy within them. That's why they have a greater capacity to give. Okay? And this joy that is created within them is not something that I would like to experience joy, so I'm going to do an action of giving. But rather, when the opportunity arises, whether they want to or not, because they are so willing to give, they are so willing to give, to share. That willingness to share creates a great joy within them, and that's why the bodhisattva at this level is called the very joyous, the very joyful, because of this experience. So just to hear someone make a request of them, that very request for them to exercise generosity in some way or another, to give time, to give of their possession, creates great joy within them. And this is constant within them. And it's not only when the opportunity comes, it creates joy within them. They're in this constant state of joy because they are constantly open to be generous. They're constantly open to be generous. And when the actual opportunity comes, it's like they experience orgasm. So when someone asks them to make an act of generosity, it creates this great ecstasy in their minds. So similar to that actual experience, when we give, we experience the different degrees of generosity, where when we give wholeheartedly, there's a certain joy that comes with it. And because we are beginners, there's a danger in that. The danger being, now we may be attached to this joy that comes within us, where we are looking for opportunities not to just give because it is needed, but we just want to experience that joy again. Okay, so there's the danger there. So when we experience the joy that comes when you're giving wholeheartedly, just be aware of it. Do not be careful not to be attached to it. Okay, and why would we be attached to it? Because we are living constantly in some kind of pain or another. We are constantly seeking relief. And if we witness ourselves experiencing some kind of relief by giving, then we may become attached to that joy that we experience. And the joy itself becomes the aim, becomes the goal, no longer just the sincerity of giving, no longer to fulfill the need that is presented. Because sometimes when we have the capacity to, sometimes what in the beginning, when we are engaging in the act of giving, we may experience some pain. And somehow we are able to bear the pain accompanying with it. Because strangely enough, what allows us to bear the pain, the difficulty of making that act of giving, is that the level of joy that arises from that sincere generosity supports us, gives us the capacity to bear that difficulty, to bear that pain. Okay. So you have, at our level of practicing generosity, the important thing to do is to continue to review That is, when there is a call to act, to engage in generosity, make sure that we are capable of giving what is being asked. And even to the point where it is said that, let's say, for example, you're studying something, that what you're studying will help you help many people. You have a textbook. That's the example that they give in the teachings. You have a textbook, and you haven't mastered the text yet. You haven't mastered you don't fully understand what's in there. You haven't mastered the understanding. You haven't mastered the ability to practice yet. And someone comes and asks you, "Oh, can I have that book?" You don't have the means to buy another book. This is the only copy that you have. For whatever reason, it's very difficult to get another copy. Either it's rare, or you have to expend a lot of energy that you don't have, or you just don't have the means. The means to get another copy you just don't have. Okay, and you have not mastered what's in the text yet. And the purpose of the text is to help you to be able to help many people eventually. Should you give that book? It may a kind of compassion will compel you. You will want to be able to help the person. You will want to give the book. So what do you need to do? You have to examine the situation. Am I someone who's actually capable of mastering what's in the book, what's in the text? And if the other person is more capable, maybe you might be able to give them that text, and they will master it and it will teach it to you. But if the person is somewhat at the same level as you are, or even haven't really even started the text, then it is an inappropriate act of generosity to give that text away, because you're not really helping anyone. You're not helping yourself because you started already and you have not fully mastered the understanding that the text is giving you. And you can substitute the text with anything that's happening in your life. Can you really give your house and go out and go live in the street? Someone comes and asks you to give them your home. It's a beautiful thing to be able to give them your home, but are you really psychologically, mentally capable to give it? And when you give it, are you just putting yourself in a difficulty, or are there people who are dependent upon you? Like, are there people who are dependent upon you having that home? Are you putting them in a difficulty that they're not able to face? They're not able to deal with. Okay, it would be nice to give it away, but we have to examine the situation. To what capacity am I actually able to give? And we will grow in that capacity. Some of us are very attached to certain things. We have to admit it. I'm very attached to this. And then what we can do at that time is, if we're not capable of giving, of course we want to get rid of our attachment. Then we have to make a wish, make a sincere wish. I wish to be able to give this one day. And as far as the other person is concerned, who's making the request, you can simply give them your truth. I am not able to do this now. Okay? And that is the best thing that you can give at that time, to give them your truth. I am honestly incapable of giving. And you make sure that it is something that you're actually working on to be able to do later on. You want to be able to give liberally, freely, but only when you are actual bodhisattva who has reached that level of practice where you're really free. You're really free of attachment, all kinds of attachment. And you also have a certain degree of wisdom. Just because someone asks you for something doesn't mean that you must give. Even though you may have the capacity to give, You have to use your own wisdom to discern. And it could be wrong in the beginning. The thing is, I don't really understand, but I have this hint that I shouldn't give this to you. And you don't have to give. And if it's confusing for us, we have to then make a wish. May I really come to understand this so that I can give truly and sincerely and with wisdom. Okay? And when we do that, we are sincerely practicing generosity. So sincerely practicing generosity is that whenever somebody asks you for something, you're supposed to give it away. Okay? You aspire to be able to do that. But that is not the only way of practicing generosity. We have to gradually do that. And that's why Master Shantideva said, in the beginning, just give carrots. If that's all you're able to give carrots and peas. Okay? If that's all you're able to give is carrot and peas, then give carrots and peas. And when you're able to give more, then you give more. That you don't want to experience regret at the end of an act of generosity that basically destroyed the potential energy that you have created with this act of giving, of generosity. To have any regret. Regret destroys the goodness of it, you could say. Okay. And I don't have to go into what to give. Whatever it is that can be given, your time, energy, attention, things that you possess. Of course, you cannot exercise generosity with something that you don't possess. Okay. There's no need to explain that. Okay. Of course, you can, if you do not have the thing, if you imagine giving it, is that generosity? That is a form of generosity, to give in your imagination. Okay, so you can sort of imagine the ideal way that you would like to engage in the act of practicing generosity. Okay. Now, what does it do when you allow yourself to consciously engage in the practice of generosity, in the perfection of giving? We are, one thing, clearing away all negativities. Sorry, I can't think of a better word. That's the only word that comes to mind. All negativities that we have amassed that is connected to deeds where we were selfish, to potentials that we have within us that came from selfishness. So just by the action of generosity itself, we are clearing away those things. Not only are we clearing away those things, we are also opening ourselves to abundance. It's not abundance in a sense of saying that one day you become Elon Musk or you become Jeff Bezos. Okay, that's not necessarily generosity. Okay, but rather you can be someone who has no material possession whatsoever, but through you, others can have access to material wealth. How does it work? Because you're sincerely practicing generosity. You don't even have much possession, but somehow someone comes to you and makes a request of you of some material thing that you don't have. But because of your sincerity to give, somehow you find it for them. Okay? And the reason that you're able to find it for them is because of you have now opened yourself to abundance. Okay, so abundance doesn't mean that you're filled with possession and you have a storehouse filled with so many stuff and you're just waiting for someone to come ask you and then just go into your storehouse and then grab it and give it to them in a material way. But it exists more in a energetic way, you could say, where your abundance is such that others can have access to even things that you don't have through you. Okay. And the abundance is not just for material things, but also abundance of energy, abundance of understanding, abundance of compassion, abundance of love. Okay. All those different dimensions of abundance we open ourselves to when we practice generosity. And what determines the perfection of generosity is slowly, we get rid of the barrier of separateness. We get rid of the barrier of duality. Slowly and slowly, our mind becomes more and more merged with truth, with reality as it is. One last thing I want to say about generosity in your imagination. In the same way that you will have something, which is some substantial thing that you could give, okay? Whether it's a material possession, whether it's your time, whether it's some knowledge that you have or some skill that you have, whatever it is, okay? In the same way that there is a sense of, I am no longer having this, I am transferring ownership of this from me to this other person. In that same way that is felt, that must also be felt when you're doing it in your imagination. Okay, you don't own, like when, for example, when we're offering the mandala, the practice of offering the mandala, basically offering the entire universe. If there is no sense at the time when you're doing it that I'm actually transferring ownership that I have of the universe away from me, that I will not know, at the end of doing the practice, I am not going to any longer have possession of the universe. It will be someone else's. If there is no true sense of that, then it's not true. It's not even real giving at the level of imagination. At the level of imagination, the sense of actually transferring something to someone else must be felt, whoever the person is. Okay. So 3 ways to make it very powerful, and I'll end right there. To make the action, to make generosity powerful. That is after establishing everything else, okay? After establishing that this is the capacity that I can, and this is what I understand. There is some understanding of the things involved, okay? What I'm giving is something that I see has value to give. The person that I'm giving it to, I have high respect and regard for the person. The most powerful way you can think of is, no matter who the person is, whether it is someone who's in desperate need, who's a beggar, who's a whatever the status in life, consider that this is a great opportunity that my own innate guru is providing me, my innate teacher is providing me. So this person during this very moment of acting, of being able to engage in generosity, this person is actually the most precious person on the planet, the most precious person in my life, at least in this moment. And this is my own teacher, my own innate teacher, giving me an opportunity to practice generosity so that I can evolve. Okay, so consider the person who's receiving highly, have deep respect for them. And again, lastly, the very action of giving it, let it be done with great respect, with great reverence. Okay, like if you can, hold the thing that you're giving with two hands. Okay, unless it's not possible to do that. Okay, if you're reaching out and it's quick, but do it. Have some sense of having respect for the person. Do it in a manner that is respectful. So that's how you do it in a very powerful way. And of course, if you can add a little spice of some deep understanding of what's going on in some ultimate way, okay? Even if you don't have any deep understanding or just an aspiration, like, I wish I could fully understand what's really going on here, okay? Just that alone itself is wisdom, okay? All right, I think I've spoken enough about this. And if there is anyone who has a question, you can ask your question, especially if you think that there's something that I should have covered that I didn't cover.
Hi, Phuntsok.
Hey.
Happy to be back. Thank you so much. With generosity, I think about like certain cultures, like my family's Italian,
Mm-hmm.
and especially Southern Italian, how there's just so much hospitality and so much generosity, and you leave someone's house you just met with like a tablecloth, like they just like give and give and give, and it's just like, and feed you, and it's almost like, it's been interesting navigating that culturally, because it was in America, a lot of my friends were just like overwhelmed and scared they would have to return this, and even roommates growing up, they didn't want to share eggs, or they didn't want to share anything food related. And it just really sort of, I had to like understand the different values, but I never was expecting this tit for tat. It was to me, it just seems so normal. But I've been thinking a lot about sort of this unconscious giving that my family, I think, and myself have do. Like, for example, if I'm hosting a gathering, I sort of go on autopilot of like making sure everything's going. And I become very ungrounded very easily. So yeah, I don't know if I have a question there, but I have a different question. But I figured as I said it, maybe a question would pop up. But I think it's more, you said many things. I think one thing that was really helpful was about, sort of this act of respect and reverence, holding with two hands. That really resonates in terms of like a money exchange or generosity, because I remember I saw this like medicine woman in Mexico, and I had left like the cash on the table, and I was like, thanks so much, and she grabbed it, and she grabbed my hand, and she was like, no, like, you're gonna give this to me, this is an exchange. And it was just like such a tough love moment, and I was like, oh wow, she's right, like I shouldn't just like put it over there, it should be like with two hands, thank you, like a true exchange. So I love how you said that. My question though, I don't have a question, I guess, on that, but my question is where I struggle is often I feel like I'm projecting when someone's suffering. How do we know when we're not projecting? It's generally like I'm like not in my head. I'm not projecting, but sometimes it's like, and then sometimes somebody will say something, and I will, like, for example, someone was like, oh, my father was an addict, and I sometimes things like that will catch you off guard, and I'll say like, I can't imagine what that must be like. Like I have both situations happen where I have no idea what to say because I can't relate, or like I project because something very similar happened to me. I don't know if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. The thing to remember is we are practicing. And how do you know if you're not projecting or not? When the impulse comes, sit with the impulse. Don't prejudge it. Don't think of it as projection. Don't think of it as not projection, but rather just sit with it as it is. And when you sit with it as it is, then it will slowly reveal itself to you if this is just projection or not. But the thing is, at what level of sincerity, what is your level of sincerity at that moment? And it is only according to that level of sincerity should we act. Whether it is a projection or not, but we have a sincerity about it being not a projection, then we act according to that, to how it feels sincerely for us. So being open to being fully open to it, that is what will help us eventually come to know, oh, that was just a projection. And when we really come to know that it was a projection, it will be clear to us that it was a projection. And we will come to know exactly why is it a projection. Okay. And there are some times where our projection will be mixed with you could say a non-projection, that there is suffering there. And at the same time, the force of habit that we have with projection, that we project something on top of that. Still, we are witnessing suffering in some degree, and we have to allow our compassion to guide our action. And the only measure of wisdom that we can exercise at that time is to simply be with whatever impulse is present. Okay. So how do you learn? You simply keep making mistakes. That's the only way to eventually come to know whether it's projection or not. And that's the only way to eventually no longer have to project anymore. It's to keep making mistakes and keep being open to change. That perhaps the suffering that I'm seeing is just my own projection. Just being open to that, especially when it's not clear. Okay, just being open of the possibility of that. Okay. And this is the path of how you will one day no longer be projecting suffering, but actually be dealing with real suffering. Unfortunately, there isn't a switch that you can flip where you say, oh, now it's not projecting. Okay. It's a gradual process. Okay. Was that, oh, that was, that helped. All right, I think that was the only question. And we've reached time. Okay. All right, everybody's ready to close. So next week next time we meet, we will cover the next perfection, the perfection that comes after generosity. And the reason Shila conduct, skillful behavior comes right after generosity is because of what the very practice of generosity is doing to our minds. It leads to naturally to focusing on skillful behavior. Okay, it naturally leads to that. And as we are practicing generosity, the others are also present. Okay, and we'll do the summary sometime at the end, the summary of how each influences each other when we are practicing one. So when you practice one, you're actually practicing all the others at the same time. Okay, under the guise or under the cloak of one of them that is the emphasis that is being emphasized. All right. Ready for closing meditation. And we are going to do, we're going to do a little generosity meditation, a little kind of mandala. Okay. So get ready to meditate. With that mere intention to meditate, feel the body responding, feel your mind responding, allow them to cooperate, allow them to participate. Feel the body already touching the meditative state through a sense of calming and pleasantness. Noticing that, welcome it, rejoice. By palpably recognizing and being aware of them in the body, we begin to have a palpable awareness of them also in the breath and the mind. We rejoice. And to steady, we take a nice deep breath. And as you take that breath, let yourself align and connect with the sense of being in meditation, being aware of that sensation of being in meditation, connect with it, stay aware of it, stay with it. And we're going to do an act of, we're going to do a mandala offering, something like that, something of a mandala offering as a group. So feel our circle. Everyone here who's attending, everyone is sitting right next to you in a circle. And in the very center, there is this bright presence, which is us, our sense of usness. It's connected to each one of us through a light, through a line, through a ray of light, our hearts, body, the forehead, the throat, and the heart. Rays of light coming from those points of us, connecting to those three places in the center of that presence, or just one ray of light coming from your heart. And what this ray of light is doing is empowering us as we empower it. How are we empowering it? We are empowering it with, consider whatever understanding that I have right here, right now, up to this moment. It's empowering that presence. Whatever possessions that I have up to this moment, it's empowering that presence. And understand that in a way, the universe that we perceive is our universe. However it is appearing to us, consider to be that somehow we are participating in, just by being in the universe, just by perceiving this and that, experiencing this and that, you could say that is our universe. And consider the virtue of us as a group collected together and is being projected very nicely by the presence of our center. And feel the entire universe, the immediate space where we are, the energy that we have, the understanding that we have, the resources that we have. It's all being collected together and it's becoming our space, the very space that we are sitting in. And there's a glow to the space, there's a richness to the space. And whatever it is that you have found yourself in need of, the space is filled with it. It's filled with abundant time, abundant energy, abundant understanding. And the material resources that you need, it's filled with it in an abundant way. And where is that coming from? It's coming from our compassion for one another, our sense of connection to one another. The understanding that we have right here, right now, up to this point. That's what is creating this abundance, especially from tonight. It is creating an abundance that is taking the shape of the very universe that we are living, staying in, and see it expanding beyond your home, beyond your neighborhood, beyond this continent, beyond the planet Earth itself, beyond the solar system, as far as we can imagine, as far as we can have a sense of the universe. And the universe that we are perceiving is, right now, is coming from our goodness, coming from our understanding, coming from our intention to be generous. And everything that we have found ourselves in need of, the universe is filled with it. Time, energy, understanding, patience. And now think of, through compassion, think of everyone in the world who is in need of anything from this beautiful universe that we have created through our own goodness. It is our possession. It is ours. And wherever they are, if there's a specific person you can think of, see that person in front of our group. See those people in front of our group. And with compassion in your heart, with a sense of you're actually going to give away all these beautiful things that you have collected with your own goodness, because you just want to alleviate the suffering of whoever's lacking. That is your reward, to see them no longer lacking. And through the grace of our combined self, we see everyone as worthy, as though they are our own teacher, appearing as someone is in need to help us practice generosity. and with love, with joy, with respect, we give away our universe, created from our own goodness, filled with the things that we ourselves want, and we give it away. And as soon as we give it away, feel a great joy arising in your heart, because you see whoever was in need, they are no longer in need. They are satisfied. They're no longer lacking. And just stay in that joy, like a parent who gives something to a child, to his or her child, and the joy in the parent's heart, witnessing the child enjoying what was given. Okay. And with that joy, become aware of the meditation state itself, the calm, the pleasantness of the meditation state itself, the sense of clarity and radiance. You see the presence, our combined presence in the center, now dissolves into light and into each one of us, transforms into just rays of light that dissolves into each one of us. And we are filled with a joy, knowing taking care of me, take care of us, taking care of us takes care of me. You dedicate. Gyawadi Gyokun Sunam Yeshil Tzokzok Shem Sunam Yeshil Lechong Tamba Guni Topar Shu. Now, with a state of mind that is enjoying, I just give away my entire universe so that those who are lacking are free of lacking. Keep that state of mind and then make the intention to come out of the meditation. Take a nice deep breath. And let that state of mind and your awareness merge with your immediate surroundings through your sense of touch. Be aware through your sense of hearing, and be aware through your sense of sight. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Phuntsok. Speaking of generosity, some of the greatest examples of generosity are our mother figures, our parents, and our teachers. I was just thinking about in the old days of masters, and even to some degree now, people would have to scrape together whatever bits of gold and precious stones and whatever valuables they could offer, and travel many miles, many days, long, arduous journey to receive teachings. So how fortunate are we to have such easy access to Phuntsok and all our teachers, and to be able to easily receive teachings. And Phuntsok, I know, has been generously giving a lot of time, his energy and life force, and teaching for 2 decades or more. prioritizing us and our understanding, our growth. And I'm sure it hasn't been always convenient for him. And maybe there are days where he'd rather be meditating in a cabin in the woods. And I've heard people say this a lot, and I've experienced this too, where you go to a teaching or event somewhere and it feels like somehow you receive exactly what you've been desperately needing in that moment. Something that you've been desperately needing to hear or receive. And I think that's the energy of generosity trickling through the collective of our community, our Sangha, and from the incredible generosity and skillfulness of our teachers and their teachers and the teachers before them. And it's the immeasurable generosity and compassion in the spirit of Manjushri and Avalokiteshvara reverberating through our teachers when they share this wisdom with us. So I just wanted to take a moment to share gratitude for Phuntsok and his teachers and all of our teachers. So thank you. Or interest, please let us know. And please make your offering for this class, which you can send to Phuntsok directly through Venmo or through ongoing patronage through Patreon. Please note that Phuntsok's Venmo name has changed. It's now at Thupten Phuntsok, all one word. And thank you everyone for joining this live session. Wish you all meaningful engagement with generosity, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Phuntsok.
Hey. Thank you.
So much.
Yeah. I guess this will be the time that we share tea and have conversations. Okay then. Lovely to see you all. Thank you for coming.